Hello, welcome to WeatherWise. I'm meteorologist Nathan Scott. Today, we're going to discuss some big changes happening at the Storm Prediction Center when it comes to issuing severe weather outlooks. Let's talk about what consists of severe weather, because there's three factors that meteorologists take into account when we're expecting the potential of severe weather. So here's the graphic. It includes winds, hail, and of course, a tornado. But the winds have to be 58 miles per hour or greater for it to be considered severe weather. Hail has to be at least 1 inch in diameter, which is right around a quarter size or larger, and or a tornado is possible. When it comes to lightning, it doesn't matter how much lightning a storm produces, it does not make it severe. Head over to Storm Track 11 now, Perry, because when we talk about outlooks, we're always familiar with the different types of outlooks and the levels. So I'm going to go over here and look at past data. Now, this was March 31st, 2023, and we're very familiar with what happened here in Central Arkansas during that day. What you see, I'm going to zoom in, are the different type of outlooks, and we were under actually a high risk later that day, but you see the breakdown. So we have a marginal, level 1, level 2 for slight risk, then enhanced risk, level 3, which means the risk of severe weather increases the higher the number is. And then also once you go from the orange to the red, eventually to purple. So we were under a moderate risk at this time when this was issued. And this was issued earlier in the morning before the event unfolded. This tells the story. This tells you, okay, things could get bad. But it doesn't give specific details in how bad things could get. We look at the probabilities, and we don't show this that often on air unless we have to. But this gives you a better idea, and where that hatched area is, or dashed area, that tells you the probability of seeing an EF2 or greater tornado within 25 miles of a point. So with this forecast, it's saying right here in Northeast Arkansas, Central Arkansas, the probability of seeing an EF2 or greater tornado is 15% within 25 miles of any point in this red zone. And then it's 10% in any point within that yellow zone. It gives you an idea, okay, this could be a bad day. Well, now the Storm Prediction Center has taken that information and has gone even further with it with its new update that's coming out March 2nd of this year. And you'll see what I mean when I say it's going to get a little bit confusing, especially trying to distribute this on air. Same thing for your damaging wind graphic. There's your probability, 5, 15, 30, 45, 60, and then it goes significant with the black area. So once again, this is saying within 25 miles of a point in that red area, in the significant area, we're looking at the potential of seeing winds that could be over 75 miles per hour, which is about 65 knots. As for hail, same thing. So it's broken down. So we take those outlooks that we started out with from marginal all the way to high, and then you break down each individual element that a storm could produce with the probability of a tornado and how strong that tornado could be, the hail, and also the wind. Here's even a better breakdown of what you're used to. So once again, level 1 through 5 is what we're dealing with. And there you see category marginal, and the details when you're in a marginal risk of severe weather. Some storms could be capable of damaging winds and severe hail. Localized tornado threat could develop. Usually in a marginal risk, though, we're not talking about a long-lived, long-track tornado situation. However, that has happened. Just because you're on a marginal risk doesn't mean you just let your guard down entirely, because there have been cases where parts of the region, wherever this was issued in the past, did see a strong tornado. It happened in Tennessee just a few years ago when there was a EF3 tornado that went through Cookeville, Tennessee in the middle of the night. And they were under a marginal risk at first, then they bumped it up to a slight risk just before that event unfolded. Unfortunately, a lot of people probably weren't paying attention because they were under marginal risk, so they probably thought, no big deal, they can go to bed, and it happened in the middle of the night, and the tornadoes unfortunately killed several people. Slight risk, increased confidence that some storms will contain damaging winds, severe hail, and or tornado potential. So your slight risk, your tornado potential starts to go up. And then you see the summary here: isolated severe storms possible for marginal risk, isolated to scattered severe storms expected for a slight risk. And then it says, how bad could the worst storms be? Similar to storms your area may experience several times a year, similar to storms your area may experience a few times a year, and then you keep going down the list. And of course, when we had that tornado March 31st, 2023, Little Rock, we were under a high risk, and also wind got hit with a tornado. High confidence that an outbreak of storms will contain tornadoes, damaging winds, and or severe hail. Tornado outbreak and widespread damaging winds. Numerous severe storms expected. However, that's not always the case. Sometimes it's just one lone supercell during a high event day that can cause catastrophic damage for those locations that it actually goes over. Meanwhile, the rest of the region may not see any severe weather. So that can be a little bit confusing, but basically when we have a high risk, you can tell it in the tone of your meteorologist here with the THV 11 Weather Impact Team that we're serious. You can see it in our face that there could be some big time concern looking at the information. That was the case back on March 31st, 2023, when we had an EF3 go right through the heart of Little Rock. Definitions, we already went through the definitions. Then, definition of a significant severe storm is when wind gusts of at least 75 miles per hour or greater are expected, hail at least 2 inches in diameter are expected, or a tornado of at least an EF2 rating is expected. We'll go over to the graphics now, Perry. And here are the new rules that will be implemented once we get into March 2nd. So the severe weather outlooks, they're not changing. We'll still have marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, high. They will remain as level 1 through 5. Here is the new thing. It's called conditional intensity. So the areas of significant weather that had the dash marks earlier will be replaced by 3 levels to indicate what is the worst case scenario for each threat. Another thing that's going to be changing is we have new probabilities added to damaging wind gusts. Before, it was only going up to 60%. Now we're adding a 75 and a 90% chance to that damaging wind threat. So this is the new look on Storm Track 11, Perry, that is on their website. And you can find this on the Storm Prediction website. And I'm going to zoom in here because it's a little hard, but there you go. There's the old look on a big risk day. I don't know exactly what day this was. It says 3/15/25. So March 3rd, 2025. And this is what it's going to look like now on their website. This is obviously not what's going to look like on air for us because, let's face it, that's a little bit confusing. I mean, you got dashed areas, here, and then you got lines going this way, and then you got a crosshatch here. That's way too much information to give you in a few minutes. So we'll have to figure out, do we have to do a different color scheme or some other way to convey that information? And all broadcast meteorologists are going to have to figure this out because, again, that's really confusing for the general public to interpret when it comes down to, okay, you really need to pay attention today, or today is not going to be as wild. But there's the probability on the legend, there's the intensity. So we had everything on the board. We have conditional intensity 1. We have conditional intensity level 2 in the solid areas through Alabama, West Georgia, and to a large part Mississippi. But then you have conditional intensity level 3 into parts of central Mississippi, east central Mississippi, and then bleeding its way into West Alabama. So that area is going to be the highest chance of seeing the worst of the worst weather. Most likely, we're going to have discrete supercells producing potentially EF4, EF5 tornadoes when we look at this type of situation with this forecast. So we can go back. Oh, there we go, Perry. Thank you. The SPC, this is once again straight from the website. The SPC will represent these intensity forecasts as conditional intensity groups, CIG, or more simply, intensity levels. These 3 intensity distributions, CIG1, CIG2, and CIG3, will be utilized to communicate the increasing intensity of significant hazards should severe hazards occur. The new conditional intensity groups will be visible on the Storm Prediction Center Severe Weather Outlook Day 1, 2, and also 3. Graphics disseminated through the SPC Outlook PTS product replacing the current operational sign label. So there's, once again, the different ways they are going to use to show the different levels of intensity. So this is how it's broken down to simplify it between level 1, level 2, level 3. So level 1, lowest impacts are expected if storms develop. And this is always going to be if storms develop. Because just some reasons, severe storms may not develop under a high-risk day or a moderate risk day. We've seen it before. It can be because the cap holds on, and the cap is a lid on the atmosphere, and that cap was expected to break. Well, if the cap doesn't break, the storms don't develop, even though it's a high-risk day. That's a busted forecast, but in a good situation. Or storm mode. Maybe we're expecting a whole bunch of supercells to develop. But in reality, we had a line of storms develop. So that really cuts down on the potential of severe weather because supercells, they don't like any competition. They like to have the buffet of warm, humid air to themselves. Once you get other storms competing for the same environment, that lowers the threat of really intense severe weather. You can still have severe weather, of course, with a line of storms, but you're not going to have EF4 tornadoes with a line of storms versus supercells. So when we have a CIG1, tornadoes will be weak, EF0 or EF1. This is a classification that meteorologists use. I know just because there's a weak tornado, it can still do damage. A weak tornado can still rip up a shed, rip up a chicken house, bring down trees, and if that tree falls on your home, that is major impacts to your personal life. And it may just be your home that gets hit. Everybody else is perfectly fine because usually in that case, a tornado does not last very long, only a couple miles. Hail will be less than 2 inches. Still, an inch diameter size hail can cause problems. It can still put holes in your roof, and especially the crops. It can destroy crops. But we're not looking at the real intense situation when we have a CIG level 1. And winds less than 65 miles per hour, or 75 miles per hour. So that's between 58 miles per hour up to 75 mile per hour winds will be expected in this type of situation. Then we jump to a CIG2 level. So conditional instability level 2, high impacts are expected, once again, if storms develop. Tornadoes could be strong, EF2 or greater. So an EF2 is a strong tornado. An EF3 is a strong tornado. Then you get to a violent tornado, EF4 and of course EF5. Hail could be 2 inches or larger. Winds could be more than 75 miles per hour. And finally, CIG3, that's when you have destructive impacts are expected. This is the type of situation where you could have a really big half mile or a mile wide tornado that, basically just wipes away a whole neighborhood. This would be what happened with 2023. This would be what happened with Valonia and Mayflower in 2014, that type of situation. Tornadoes could be violent, EF4 or greater. Hail could be greater than 3 inches, and winds could be greater than 90 miles per hour. Now, I just found this on the Storm Prediction Facebook page that clears things up a little bit better, because I made this graphic and then I found this. So this is their definition of when they break down each intensity level according to the different elements. So they're saying a no intensity, mostly EF0, EF1, intensity level 1, max expected EF2 or higher, intensity level 2, max expected EF3, intensity level 3 for tornadoes, max expected EF4. And then your wind intensity, no intensity, highlights mostly less than 64 knots, which is about 58 to below 75, I believe, miles per hour. Intensity level 1, all storm modes, peak wind gusts 65 plus knots. Intensity level 2 really focuses on the potential of a bow echo. We had that make its way through Little Rock last year, or a derecho. And that is a long-lived wind event that is just basically a wall of wind that can be 90 to 100 miles per hour or greater, and it moves very quickly. So if they were seeing something like that, it'd be intensity level 2, and then a high-end derecho is intensity level 3. Hail intensity, no intensity highlights, mostly less than 2 inches. Intensity level 1, supercell environment with largest hailstone greater than 2 inches. And then intensity level 2, you have long track supercells, largest hail of 3.5 inches. So there's no level 3 when it comes to hail. So when we talked about the different probabilities within 25 miles of a point in the zone, these were the probabilities. Tornado goes 2%, 5, 10, 15, 30, 45, 60%. Hail goes 5, 15, 30, 45, 60. And then damaging winds go 5, 15, 30, 45, 60, but now they've added 75 and 90%. So that is the change also happening with this new update. And we'll go back over to Storm Track 11. And there you see added wind probabilities on their webpage. It says 75 to 90%. All right, so now things get a little murky. So this is the chart that the Storm Prediction Center is going to be using when it comes to breaking down each individual element according to the probability, but then also what is the worst case scenario, and that's the conditional intensity forecast. And you look at this, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, how in the world are we going to break this down for you at home to communicate, okay, this is a day where you really, really need to pay attention, or this is a day that you want to pay attention because it could go one direction, or it may not be as severe as what they're saying. We're just focused on the tornado here, and look at all the different combinations. So let's take, for instance, this 2% chance of a tornado, and it looks like it would be a day that could produce a EF0 or EF1 type situation. So marginal risk, okay, that's pretty easy. So probably a level 1 is what we would go with. What color? Well, that's the other thing we have to figure out. Then let's go to a 15%, and let's say it's a potential that we could have a couple supercells out there that may produce an EF3 tornado. Well, now you're looking at this area, 15%, it's a conditional intensity level 2. That's going to be a moderate risk when it comes to what they're going to issue as a whole with the outlook. This is not the breakdown. That's a whole different beast when it comes to the actual breakdown. But looking at level 1 through 5 on the Outlook map, this is what you would get. We're going to have to, I think, do a new levels. I think probably 9 levels according to all the different probabilities that we have. We're going to have to probably have a color scheme of 9 different colors when we're breaking down each individual element with the tornado, wind, and hail. And same thing with the wind. So yeah, it's confusing. Believe me, I understand that 100%. If you're looking at this and you're like, how in the world are they going to try to simplify this? Because that is our job as meteorologists, to take convoluted, confusing information and try to break it down as simple as possible so you at home know how to prepare for significant weather events. So with a tornado, 60% and a conditional intensity of level 3, that's probably going to be a level 9. And I say levels 1 through 9 because when we go back to Max, the graphics here, Perry, there's different probabilities, and they're not all the same. So the lowest probability of a tornado is 2%. And then hail, you have 5, 15, 30, 45, 60. You don't have 10. So we have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we'd have 7 colors with tornado. But now we have 2 new probabilities added here for damaging winds. So that would be 8, 9. And you just, the probability of tornado, the highest is 60%, but the probability of damaging winds is 90%. So yeah, we got lots to figure out in less than a month. And we'll definitely talk as a team and try to come up with something that is going to be simple as possible. The Storm Prediction Center also said they're going to have some classes for broadcasters to simplify this and make it as easy as possible for the general public to understand. Because they said, it is quoted on their Facebook page. I don't know, Perry, if you can take this. It says, given the complexity, I don't know if I can zoom in here on that. There it is. Oh, I missed it. Went too far. Okay. Given the complexity of this change, we have developed a comprehensive training plan to ensure our core partners have access to detailed educational and training materials before we go live. This includes the National Weather Service, broadcast meteorologists, emergency managers, and more. So this is a huge deal that's going to impact every meteorologist across the country, but certainly the meteorologists that always deal with severe weather, us here in Arkansas, the Deep South, the Mid-South, the Central Plains, the Northern Plains. Yeah, this is going to be great in one aspect, but we just have to figure out how to break that information down for you at home, and we will certainly do that. So that is the new rules that will be coming out once again March 2nd of this year. Stay tuned for more information on that right here on THV 11. We're going to take a little break, and we're going to do a real quick thing because we've entered a new month. It's February, so we'll talk about a few statistics. Stay tuned. Switching gears, we're going from severe weather to just some fun statistics when it comes to February, because now we started a new month. And the hottest temperature, in case you're wondering, was 87 back in 1918. Coldest temperature, we dropped down to 12 below back in 1899. This all applies to observations at Little Rock. The wettest February, that was 2018, when we received 14 inches of rain, or over 14 inches. The driest, a half inch, 1947, and your average high, 52. For the first day of February, the average low is 32, but by the end of the month, our average high is getting close to 60, and our average low is 37. Usually, we see 3.97 inches of rain for the entire month. And also, notice your sunrise is at 7:07 for the first day. It sets at 5:38, and by the end of the month, our sunrise will be happening at 6:39, and it sets at 6:04. So things are going in our favor, and usually we have some warmer days in February. And here are some max and mins since 2003. You see the highest temperature was recorded. 2012, we hit a high of 82 degrees one day during the month. And the lowest one, well, that wasn't too far. That was back in 2021 because we had over 20 inches of snow and the temperature dropped down to 1 below zero. Speaking of snow, check it out here. For the month of February, there is actually 20.3 inches that happened back in 2021, but usually we don't get too much snow. We've only seen 1.2 last year, 2.1 in 2022, and then there was some snowy Februarys back in 2010 and 2011. But that 2021 stands out because that's the most snow that we've seen since the 21 inches back in 1966. So the snowiest Februarys on record. Number one is 2021, and then a distant second, 13.1 back in 1921. And the warmest Februarys, well, that was just 2 years ago. Remember 2024? Yeah, that was very toasty, and actually we had an early spring that year as daffodils and tulips were really blooming well in advance. So February can bring some still chilly numbers, still snow, but it can also bring certainly a little spring tease in the forecast as well. That's all for this episode of WeatherWise. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any ideas, please let me know what you have in mind. You can send me a message on my Facebook page, or you can contact me on email, which is nscott@thv11.com. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.